Hello, Trev here. I'm just going to do a little tuition video on restringing an electric guitar. And there are quite a few different types of guitar, but most electrics have the kind of the same sort of principles on how to put your strings in and how they're kind of wound at the machine heads up here. But before we start, I just want to go through a few little tools that you might need. So there's one of these which is a winding tool, which is quite helpful for maintaining the machine heads. So you don't necessarily need this, but as I've got one, I'll show you how it works. You might need some wire cutters. So again, the wire cutters could be any sort. You can get specific ones. I've had these a while. They were just for cutting wire, and that's to cut the kind of the excess bit of string off. You'll need a set of strings, so I'm going to use these regular slinky strings today, but you can use your preference of string. One thing to just be aware of, as well as the brand, is just the kind of the gauge. So these are what I would call 10s. So they're fairly light for electric guitar strings. You can get 9s, which are even lighter, which just allows you to bend more. You can get thicker strings like 11s and 12s. Acoustic guitars tend to have slightly thicker gauge strings because they're kind of less likely to do kind of guitar solos. Electric guitars tend to have slightly thinner gauge strings, and as you can see here, if I just show you the pack, you have a set of numbers. So I'll go through that. That's sort of like each thickness of string, and I'll go through that in a bit. The other thing you might want is some kind of cleaning thing. So this is called fast fret, and you get this kind of little kind of dabber. You can kind of like sort of wipe your guitar. You can do it while the strings are on as well, but it sort of protects the neck. It does come with a cloth as well, although the cloth, oh there we go, this one's got a cloth. So the cloth to wipe away excess oil. It's important not to just use soap or soap and water. That's not going to kind of do your guitar any good. So when you're doing cleaning, so we'll get onto that as well. So the first thing, so this guitar has had some strings on for a while, but they're getting old. So I would say that there's two main reasons to replace a string. One is if one of them breaks. So if it snaps, that's obvious, and you could replace just that one string. And the other thing is just if you've had them on a long time. So when I say a long time, it does depend how much you're playing, but probably 6 months, which will shock a lot of you, is probably about a moderate amount of time, and then to replace your strings. So really you should look to do it like every year. So some of my kids maybe have never, the kids I teach, sorry, have never replaced their strings. And yeah, it is a good thing to do. Well, it's a good thing to know how to do, but when you're getting more into your guitar playing, certainly every year you should be looking to replace your strings, mainly because they sound brighter. You can see, well, maybe you can't see actually, but the string gets lots of kind of corrosion, so you can kind of possibly hear, well, maybe can't really show you that, but yeah, kind of like little bits of dirt that come from your fingers. Even if you're really careful and clean your hands, your strings will erode from the sweat of your hands, just sort of pushing on different places. And yeah, it really affects the tone. This isn't plugged in, so it's not going to sound bright, but okay. So to take the strings off might sound simple, but still probably quite important not to sort of damage your guitar when you're taking the strings off. You can turn the nut and kind of loosen them and take them off. You could cut them with wire cutters, but I probably wouldn't do that. And like I say, if you've got one of these tools, you could use it to protect the machine head, and you can kind of, oops, you can see that I can kind of go round and round and round really quick, and then the string sort of gets loose enough to just sort of unthread, and then off it comes. Okay, so you can do that with all of the strings. One of the things students often ask me is which way do I turn my string for tuning, and it really does depend which way on the string has been sort of wound. So as you get to learn about your guitar and which way these strings sort of come up and then go round that way. So then let's just check. That way's up, that way's down. So it should be And what's that, clockwise? Yeah. So clockwise goes down, so anti-clockwise is up, but always use your ears when you're tuning, and the same with restringing your guitar. So if you feel the string going looser and hear it going down, that's the best way to tell. Don't just sort of not play it. And I've seen quite a few people snap strings, adults and kids, in the past. It's not very regular that someone snaps a string, but it does happen, and it tends to be when they're not really sort of listening to it. So these tighter strings, these thinner strings, sorry, they feel really tight. So when I loosen it, it goes like a rubber band. So it's really loose, and doesn't make a tone. Okay. Okay, let's take that one off. So I'm just trying to give you a bit more information while I do this. So off we come. So I'm taking them all off at this end, and then I'll show you how to take them off at the other end. A little bit fiddly. Like I say, you could just cut them. Actually, maybe I'll just show you what happens if I just cut them for the last two. I probably wouldn't say that's the way to do it, but that's what's going to happen. That's kind of more likely what happens when you snap a string. And it kind of pings, so that's probably why I wouldn't do it, because there's that potential of it flicking into, I don't know, someone's eye or whatever. And then you can see at the top sort of a kind of a bit of a carcass, a little bit of string that you can take off. But you know, you're not going to use these strings. This is old bits of string. Although when I've done this with my kids, sometimes they want to keep them for a bit, but that soon gets old. Keeping old bits of string. Okay, so you can see here. And remember, this is an electric guitar, but a lot of them, different makes of electric guitar are going to be similar to this, where it goes through the body of the guitar and comes out. And acoustic guitars are very different. Let me just show you. I'm not going to do restringing an acoustic guitar today, but acoustic guitars often, so these nylon strings, sort of classical guitar, will be wound around and kind of poke through like that. Sometimes they come through, you can just see a little hole a bit like that, and sometimes, yeah, and the winding on the other end is different as well, because it's goes round and round, rather than, let's go back to the guitar we're working on today. It's slightly different at the top. You've got the different machine heads, still pokes through, but goes kind of a smaller distance around a little bit of machine head, rather than kind of right round. So anyway, so we're doing electric guitar. I will do a video on acoustic guitars. So if we flip it round, and now you'll see that if I kind of poke these bits of string, they will come out. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. And I'll just pop them down on the floor for the moment. I'll tidy that up later. So they're the two bits that I cut, and now you'll see me get a great long bit. And sometimes it's a little bit sort of a bit of a pull at the other end. Sometimes it gets a little bit tangled, so just take your time. Okay, going through, and then they're all out. Okay, so we have a guitar with no strings. So you could just put the new string straight on, but I think this is always a really good opportunity just to check the other parts of the guitar. Check there's no damage, check your pickups, give it a clean. So I can see there's quite a bit of dust here. At the back, these sort of the bridge bits can be adjusted, but probably I'm not going to show you how to do that today, and probably would say a guitar shop is probably the way to adjust these if you're not confident. But there's sort of the intonation of the string, which again will be on all different makes of electric guitar. These are the two pickups here, so just giving the body a bit of a clean, and this is with my little bit of rag that came with the fast fret. So just to give that a bit of a clean, because it's really hard to clean this part when the strings are on. So that's the reason for doing it. And now if we look at the frets, you might find there's quite a bit of kind of gunk that kind of gets between the frets. That's, again, it's perfectly normal. So your hands, everyone's hands sweat, even if you kind of wash your hands every time you play, although that's a good idea to do, not to sort of have greasy hands if you can help it, but you will get build up of sort of residue, especially around where you play normally. So this guitar I play quite evenly, so it's an even amount of dirt, but some, like of my beginners, for example, they might always play, say, I don't know, a G chord or open chords, so those frets are the ones to work on. If you're not really playing up here, then you're not really going to notice much dirt up there. So yeah, with the fast fret, you have this kind of dabber, I've called it, but it's kind of a bit like a spongy thing, so it's got sort of a bit of a oily sort of residue inside it, and you can kind of just wipe the frets like this. There are other cleaning products available. I've not really tried any others. I've not really needed to try any others because I'm quite happy with fast fret, but I think getting something like this is a good idea. Like I say, if you don't have anything, you don't worry. Certainly don't use soap and water. Maybe just a duster. You could just give it a dust is fine, but water will corrode and sort of not be great, or soap will, sorry. You can clean the body with maybe just a damp towel and water, but the fretboard, you're better off with a kind of a specific oily sort of substance that's designed for its use. The other thing I would say is, which I've done before, is just to use like a blunt knife. Sometimes if there's a lot of dirt, I might sort of maybe use it with the rag and just sort of scrape a little bit like that, just to but just not, you know, not to scratch it, and be careful. It's actually quite clean, I'm pleased at the moment, but just, you know, to go along the frets just to sort of get any dirt up. And there's not too much dirt, which I'm pleased about, so I've not really got like a massive amount of dirt to show you, but sometimes the dirt will collect quite a lot by the frets. And don't forget to clean the head and any dust up here. Sometimes these become a bit loose, so you can kind of just check if they're okay, and you can make any adjustments needed. Okay, right, now for the restringing. So you can put the fast fret away first of all. Fast fret you can use when your guitar has strings on as well, so between getting a new set of strings, and it does sort of brighten them up. So right, let's open the packet. So Slinky, so I know what I'm doing, he says, but if you try and take them out and keep them in order, he says, throwing them on the floor, you can see they've all got different numbers on if you've never bought a set of string. And the higher the number, the thicker the string. It seems to have a voucher in that pack as well, so I'll look at that later. Okay, so you can see there's all the different numbers, and it's sort of personal preference, I guess, but or convention, to start with the thickest string. And the reason I would say it's the same with tuning. The thickest string is the least likely to snap. So it's quite a good one to put on first to get a kind of an idea of tension on the whole guitar. So you take it out and it's already coiled up, and you kind of spring it out, and then it becomes a long string with a kind of an end like this, which is what kind of holds the string. And you're going to thread it through the guitar and then tighten it the other side. So if we poke it through the top hole, this might take a little bit of coordination, so you want it to be the one that comes at the top of your guitar. The lowest string is at the top of the guitar. That's one of the things that really confuses a lot of students, because you say that the top string, meaning the top in sound perhaps, but the fat string, the big string, and it's on the physical top of the guitar. But if you flip your guitar over, you'll see that the hole is there. Okay, so just be careful and just make sure that you've got it the right way around. If you get it the wrong way around, don't worry, just put it back. Okay, and I'm going to show you like this. So what I would tend to do, there might be some better ways to do this, but what I would tend to do is do kind of one loop or a half loop, and then thread it through, and then pull up the slack. Okay, so what I've done there is I've not really kind of tightened it, since it's still floppy. I've just sort of kind of got it kind of fairly neat, and importantly, I've not pulled it super tight, because I do want a bit of that extra length, and that's going to help with the tuning when I tighten it up. So I'll explain that in a little bit, but there you can see that the string is sort of it's kind of on. It's on the guitar. It's not tuned. It's really floppy. So if you can hear that. There's no tension in it, but it's sort of in the right place. So I'll do that with a couple of the other strings. So if I've got them nicely in a set, it should be kind of just going through them one at a time. So hopefully in the right order. So this would be the A string. Okay, and it should now be a little bit simpler because I'll just go to the one next to the one I put in. Thread it through. Go up to the top. So I'm trying to demonstrate by showing you as well. So I'm kind of doing it a little bit different perhaps than when I would do it on my own. Maybe go round and then through. So there's a little bit of a loop first. Won't worry too much about that being a bit messy. And then we do the next string. So the third string. So the D string. So this is another thing that's confusing because this is actually the fourth string because we count the strings from the other side in classical guitar. Okay, so the D string, which is a bit thinner again. We go through. So I will do the whole thing, but hopefully it's sort of making sense now. So we go round round the nut. So this one's a little bit thinner, so I can possibly do a whole loop rather than a half loop. Push it round. Okay, and then, like I say, leave a little bit of slack, which I'll deal with later. Okay, so is it now? Yeah, now we're on. You'll see these strings are a lot thinner. So they've just got that kind of the metal wire. They're not sort of wound around. So you can sort of see if you look closely to the one next to it. I don't know if that's going to. I'll try and zoom in, but yeah, this is a considerably thinner, and it's just sort of one wire rather than a wire that's been wound. And let's stick that one through. This is the G string. And again, we're going up to the top. And I should have said, so I'm always going the same way when I wind. I'm going to kind of going sort of round like that. So going the other way doesn't really make sense to me at all. That's why I probably didn't sort of even say it, but I have seen lots of guitars which have done the wrong way around. The most important thing would be for them all to be the same way, but ideally they're all going to go round like that. And sometimes you have a guitar that has a guitar head with 3 on one side and 3 on the others. So the idea would be going up and out. It wouldn't be going sort of out and in, if you see what I mean. So there is a correct way to do that. But the most important thing, like I say, what I tell my students when tuning is to listen to the string. So if it sounds like it's getting really tight, particularly, then it is, you know. So if it's going to snap, I guess is the main issue with tuning. Let's just got too many strings. So what I might do sometimes is tighten some of them up, and then that sort of stops it being so chaotic up at this head end of the guitar. So I might actually do that now even. So the other thing just to bear in mind is that all of the strings are kind of creating tension all the way up the neck. So when I put one string on, it's going to affect the tension of the other strings, only slightly. And there is ways, again, of setup to kind of when the guitar's been made to sort of how this neck is attached to the guitar. So it shouldn't affect it kind of massively, but it will affect it. So let's just tighten up. So I know I've still got 2 strings to kind of attach, but let's just tighten up 1 or 2 of the strings just to give you an idea of what happens with tension. So I'm going to use this device just to save the headstock and make it a little bit easier, but you don't have to do that if you don't have one. So what I would tend to do is just kind of go round and round. The fat string's often easier, but I can kind of just hold it down there, and then hopefully you can see, but the excess sort of winds itself in. Let's do this. And then you should end up hopefully with not only a sort of a string that's wound and got some tension, so you've got a bit of tension now, but it also has sort of an extra 1 or 2, ideally, loops. And what that does is it helps, can you see? So there's kind of 2 loops, and it helps the tension sort of stay in tune. If you don't have any extra, then you've got a danger that the string might slip out. If you have too many, then it kind of, again, becomes chaotic. Don't worry too much, but that's what you're aiming for. Like a couple, I'd say 2 is good, so I'm happy with that. Let's do the tension on the second one as well. So when you're doing this, it's also quite important, firstly, to work out the way you're turning it, which I'm doing now, so while I'm talking. Not over tune it. So again, you're just looking to get some tension. So when I'm going round and round and round, and now I can tell that that's got a note, but not a lot of a note. And you might find it sort of clunks about a bit. So I can actually feel that's now got tension. So I'm not tuning, I'm just seeing it's got tension. Great. Don't over tighten at this point because we're not doing tuning, we're just putting it on. Let's do the next one. So again, I'm kind of looking at the top and sort of trying to make it sort of neat. So I'm holding my finger down on that while I turn. So I could do it without, that's fine, it just takes me longer. Get that out of the way. I could do it with the other hand, sometimes do it like that. I could also do it while I'm holding the guitar like a guitar if I wanted to. So I've taken to doing it that way around, but I could also do it this way around if I wanted to. I think it's finding which way is best for you. I think that's going to confuse me. I know, maybe I'll do it like that. It's quite a good shot for the camera, isn't it? But maybe this is the best way I think I've found, is that way around. These grooves at the nut, you can kind of line them up a little bit. So line up 1 string per groove. Let's do that a little bit more. Okay, and has that got tension? Not quite yet. So you can see that when I'm twisting with my hand, I'm having to do a lot more turns than with the I don't know what it's actually called. Has it got a name? Sort of the tuning helper that thing. I'll put that in the comments, or if you know what that's called, then do write a comment below. But yeah, it just makes it a quicker process. So I am doing it sort of as quick as I can. It's taken me 20 minutes, but I know I've been talking about other bits. So let's do that last one, and then I'll need to put the next 2 strings on as well. So just to show you how much quicker it is with this. So go round and round. But yeah, be careful because it does take off the ability to sort of feel how tight it is, because you can feel the tension sort of when you turn it, and actually with this plastic thing you don't really feel that so much. So let's just see, that's in the wrong place there. That's okay. It's got a bit of tension, but not lots. Looking more like a guitar though now, so you've got a few strings coming in. So you've got 2 more to do, and like I say, these thinnest ones are the easiest to snap, so that's why we put them on last. So this is the B string. I had a student the other week whose dad kept snapping E strings. Let's pull that one through. And in fact, what I might do while it's upside down, this is what I often do, is I might thread 2 strings through this way round, and then do the attachment both together, if you see what I mean. So, am I being a bit too fancy? No, that's fine. So I've kind of threaded the 2 strings through, and then I'll turn it round and hold it up like this. Avoid all of the excess bits of string. I'll go round. Maybe I'll do a whole 1.5 turns of the thinner string. So the thinner string is possibly the more likely to slip. So like I was saying before, it's really important to just leave some space so you've got enough to play with. In fact, let's go for tightening straight away. So put it in its groove. If you just look here, there's actually a little holder that it can go behind as well. So that's quite neat, and that's just to sort of, yeah, just basically to make it a bit neater. And then if we go round and round, if you're ever unsure, give it a twang. There's no tension really in it yet. So that's what I expected. Go round and round and round. Still not very much tension. And I can feel, sorry, let's put that up a little bit so I can see your, you can feel when it gets tighter. It is quite a fiddly process. You can also take your guitar to a guitar shop to be restrung, but I think it's a really good thing to learn how to do. So yeah, you can see that kind of just tucks in there. And now we can hear a bit of a note coming. And when we feel it's more like a note, then we stop. We don't tighten it more than that because we're not in tuning mode, and there is a danger you might just go tighter, 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 and then snap it that way. You can snap new strings just like you can snap old strings. But this one, which is the last one that I threaded before, the E string, is the one that's most likely to break because it's the most thin. So that's why we leave it to last. So hopefully by the time you get to this point in your restringing of your guitar, you'll know what you're doing. Let's put it on so it goes around there. Just have to make sure that I don't distract myself. We're going round, and then let's do a whole sort of right the way round and through. Okay, hopefully you can see all right. And then, yeah, it's sort of like a hair really, that one. And then if I go round and round, oop, so thin I can't really see it. But it's definitely there. Round and round and round. Can feel a bit of tension now, which is good. I'll make sure it's in its little clip. So there's that little clip there. We have tension. So we have tension on all of our strings. Okay, so that's not quite it, because we need to tune it, but also we need to let the strings settle. So they're all different tensions, but they've all got a note. So I've made some tension in all of the strings, and I've left, this is really important, but I've left these sort of excess bits of string sort of dangling, and you know, all of the strings are sort of a bit too long. That's intentional. So what I would tend to do now is to sort of roughly tune the guitar. So I might do this by playing one of my other guitars that's already in tune, or something with a node. So I know that needs to get to about there. You could use a guitar tuner if you want, but try not to think of it as being super accurate. So you could also do playing like on the fret. Some of you know how to do that, so you get the pitch of the next one by putting your finger on the 5th fret. But what you're looking to do is get them at roughly the right tension. So if you've not done that before, it's quite a nice way of doing relative tuning. So the 5th fret, so you can see that's really out of tune. And you can see now I'm not using my my tuning device so much, because actually I'm just doing little turns. So turning it a few times is a bit of a faff, getting this out and then sort of using that. There's not really much point unless you're actually putting a brand new string on and doing sort of, you know, 20 turns or whatever it is. So I might check my other guitar. Should be up there. Okay, so if I go back to the first one, it's already out of tune, and this is why we don't spend too long getting it perfect, because what's happening to the tension of the neck is it's changing each time we tune a string ever so slightly. And also the string, if you imagine it's like being pulled into tension, then what happens when you release it is it kind of goes back like that. Okay, and it loosens a bit. So you need to pull it again, and then it goes back a bit. And the more you pull it, then it sort of stays in tension. This is also why when you kind of bring your guitar from a hot room to from a cold sort of outside to a hot room, it'll change its tuning. So you know, it's sort of like gradually expanding or contracting, and you'll generally need to always tighten it. You won't need to loosen your strings. And then important if you're doing relatives tuning is the next one is on the 4th fret. There's a good little tuning guide at the back of Guitarist Way 1 if some of my students use that book. I'm a bit worried about snapping a string. It does happen, so you know, if you do snap a string, you know, don't beat yourself up too much, because it does happen to everybody. But it's not going to happen when I'm doing a tuition video on tuning a guitar. So the other way to tune the E string, which is quite nice, is to use the low string and just check. If you're worried, like me, I'm a bit worried about snapping it in front of my on the video, just leave it. Okay, come back to it, because you've tightened it a bit, and now it'll be kind of roughly at its right tension, and you can do the next stage, which is, as weird as it's going to sound, just play your guitar a bit, loosen the strings up, and you can even give them a bit of a twang. And what that's doing is it's sort of like breaking the string in a bit. Like I say, you've stretched it, it's kind of got looser, and now if you go kind of wobbling it around, and now what we're going to do is pull it to the correct tension again. So this time we're going to be a bit more accurate. And I do tuning quite a lot, so I'm just going to whiz through this. And it was a lot easier for me. It was a lot easier for me to tune that time. I've tuned a lot of guitars because it was roughly in tune, but we need to do the process again. And just quite hard, it's not going to work very much if you do this soft playing. That's not what we want. We want sort of almost like bashing as hard as you ever would on a guitar, just to get that string kind of into, like I say, you pulled it and now it's going, and now let's do our proper tuning. So can you hear it's roughly stayed in tune, but it's still gone down a little bit. So they will all go down together. Oop, sorry. Still a bit out, let's try again. Just about. So the next thing to do would be to leave it. Well, you can carry on playing if you want, and tune it again sort of in an hour or the next day even. What's really important is that we don't clip these yet. You know, I would probably say leave it a couple of days before you clip the excess off. You can, and I quite like doing this, but it's your own personal preference, but you can kind of tie them into sort of little circles just to sort of kind of get them sort of out the way in the meantime, but certainly do not rush to cut your excess off. And the reason for that is, like I say, the tension is being pulled. There's some excess over here. If you cut it too much, then that'll kind of well, it will adjust the tuning anyway, but it'll also mean it might kind of unravel a bit too much, and it might even unthread if you cut super near. So when you do cut, I'm not going to cut it today, but you will cut it sort of maybe 1 centimetre away from the end. Hopefully you can see sort of maybe 1 centimetre at least, I would say. So maybe 2 centimetres. And if you like, sort of one of my students really liked it when I put a new string on, just keeping them sort of tied up. That's fine too if you want to. I think it's a bit neater to cut them, but that's actually fine. And you can see even just doing that, it's gone out. So that's normal for new strings. They're getting used to their tension. So yeah, if you're not that great at tuning and it takes you a long while, the best thing to do is just to get it roughly in tune and then probably leave it for an hour and then put it back in tune and then leave it a bit more. And give it a big kind of like strum as well. Okay, I hope that's useful. I will try and do one for acoustic guitars as well, but this is for electric guitars. Like I say, electric guitars are all sort of slightly different shapes. This is a Telecaster, similar to a Stratocaster or a Fender guitar, and all of my tuning pegs are along one line. Sometimes there's 3 one side and 3 the other side, so that just means that the tuning of the strings kind of goes out like that. It's hopefully self-explanatory when you put it on. Virtually all the guitars that I've seen, electric guitars, have it through the back like that, but some might have it through there. And I think that's probably covers most of electric guitars. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Do drop any comments if you've got any questions, and yeah, see you soon. Take care. Bye bye.